The theories and ideas shared in this episode are based on publicly available information and are for the purpose of creative thought and entertainment. The topics we discuss are our own opinions and purely speculative. Our aim is to explore claims made by prominent individuals, verify them best as we can, and discuss their potential reality. We're just two regular dudes who are fascinated by this phenomena. Enjoy the conversation. Welcome back to the Rusty Saucer. How we doing today, Andrew?
How you doing? Great, Ross. How about yourself?
I'm doing great as always. Today we're gonna cover Mr. Danny Sheehan, who is actually the lawyer for Lou Elizondo, who we did a video on a couple weeks ago. You can check it out. It's episode 2, and we're just gonna go over um, Danny Sheehan's background and uh, what he did before getting involved in UFOs, and then once getting involved in UFOs, what he's been doing currently. And and this is the first time that Andrew has done a deep dive on Danny Sheehan, so it's going to be kind of exciting to see his reactions. I've known about Danny for a little while, so this should be exciting as we go over his information.
Yeah, this guy hasn't been on my radar at all. So it's going to be really interesting to see what he has to say and listen to his claims. Once again, we want to remind you that we're super appreciative of you guys for joining us here. So don't forget to always hit that subscribe button, sign up for notifications, share our links. We'd greatly appreciate it. So, Ross has been on Danny has been on Ross's radar for a while, but like I said, I've never heard about the guy. So we're gonna see what he has to say. And so with that, should we get started and give a little intro to Mr. Danny, Ross?
Yes, sir.
All right. So Danny Sheehan has had a fascinating career with a wide range of impactful accomplishments. His educational background is such. He went to Harvard College, where Sheehan graduated with a bachelor's degree in American government, where he developed a strong foundation in political science and constitutional law. He then went to Harvard Law School and he earned his Juris Doctor, which equipped him with the legal expertise to tackle complex cases. Then he went to Harvard Divinity School, where he obtained a Master of Divinity, which provided him with a unique perspective on ethical and moral issues, often informing his legal work. So, some major accomplishments of Mr. Sheehan. With the Watergate scandal happen, Sheehan was part of the legal team that investigated the Watergate break-in and subsequent cover-up, contributing to the eventual resignation of President Richard Nixon. Then he was involved in the Karen Silkwood case. As chief counsel, Sheehan represented the family of Karen Silkwood, a whistleblower who died under mysterious circumstances while investigating safety violations at a nuclear plant. The case highlighted significant issues regarding worker safety and corporate accountability, particularly for women in hazardous environments. Then he was in the Greenboro massacre case. Sheehan won a $1 million judgment against the North Carolina Ku Klux Klan, the American Nazi Party, and the Greensboro Police Department for the first-degree murder of a civil rights demonstrators in 1979. This case was a landmark in holding hate groups accountable for violence against civil rights activists. He also was involved in the Iran-Contra affair. Sheehan played a role in exposing the illegal arms sales to Iran and the covert funding of the Contra rebels in Nicaragua, which became a major political scandal in the 1980s. The Pentagon Papers, he was involved in the defense of Daniel Ellsberg, who leaked classified documents revealing government deception during the Vietnam War. This case was pivotal in affirming the right of the press to publish information of public interest. And then, last but not least, the Lakota People's Law Project. Since 2006, Sheehan has served as a lead attorney for the Lakota People's Law Project, working to stop violations of the Indian Child Welfare Act, the ICWA, and rescue Lakota children from an abusive state care system. This project addresses broader civil rights issues, including the right of indigenous women and children.
Yeah. And before we get into his involvement in UFOs, you can just tell that, he's big on defending civil rights and any type of overbearing government intervention on things and calling out um, egregious acts, in general.
Yeah,
So
from his resume, I'm liking the guy already.
yeah, Yeah, and as we'll see from the clips, he's a really, really interesting dude. But now getting into the UFO stuff. So currently, he works on at the Disclosure Project as chief counsel. Sheehan is actively involved in efforts to disclose government-held information on UFOs and extraterrestrial life. This project aims to bring transparency and accountability to the government's actions in this area. He also co-founded the new Paradigm Institute, and this institute is provided to educate the public on crucial issues such as social justice, environmental sustainability, and systemic change. The institute offers courses, seminars, and public lectures to promote a more just and equitable society. And he's really been involved in the UAP Disclosure Act, and there have been two disclosure acts. One which passed in 2023, and there's another one in Congress at this moment right now. So the 2023 one had three big parts to it. It was transparency, a disclosure timeline, and eminent domain. So for transparency, it aimed to provide a comprehensive access to all knowledge gained by the federal government concerning UAPs or UFOs, modeled after the JFK Assassination Records Collection Act. The disclosure part of this was, or the timeline is, the bill is set up in a timeline and process for disclosure of information. So just a timetable of different release dates for different UFO disclosure. And then eminent domain, which eventually did not make it all the way through the bill, was proposed. But as most bills turn out, they don't come out as they, were originally put together. And this is a big part that the second round, they're trying to get back in there. And basically, eminent domain, the government can claim ownership of UAP related materials and information held by private entities. This ensures that all significant UAP data or UFO data is centralized and accessible for national security and public transparency. Private entities will get fairly compensated for this material, as the government deems is fair. And then the materials are subject to eminent domain could include physical artifacts, documents, and any other relevant data related to UAPs. This broad scope aims to cover all possible resources of UAP information. So, yeah, that's a big deal, and it's under a lot of debate of whether the government should have this kind of authority. But at the same time, if a lot of this UFO rumors and stuff going around about big aerospace companies and government contractors like Lockheed Martin and Boeing having these exotic materials, if they've had these materials for so long and nothing good has come of it so far, maybe we should try eminent domain. So there's a lot to get out there, but all of this should give you a good understanding of the clips that we're going to be diving into today.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it can be a little sketch trusting lawyers, but he actually seems to be a
Mm-hmm.
defense attorney, not a prosecutor. Or excuse me, he seems to have the defense of people in mind, so
Right.
he's not doing litigation and trying to just sue the pants off of people. So I like that a
Right.
lot, and the fact that he's involved with the current UAP stuff is really cool.
Mm-hmm. Ethics seem to be very important to him, and for me, every time I watch him, he kind of reminds me of like a grandpa that grandpa that just says a lot of stories that some people don't always take seriously, but there's something about it that seems like that there's some truth to it, because he does make some wild claims that you're just kind of like, did he just say that? And then
Is Grandpa on his meds
and
today?
yeah, but then his resume backs it up. I mean, you can just tell this guy is very well respected in you know the lawyer community, and he's been involved in some very, very important political cases. So with that, I guess let's get to it. Let's get to these clips.
Yeah, let's check him out. So this first video we're about to play is brought to us by the X channel at Tiny Claws with a K. It's going to be a video about Danny Sheehan saying that George H.W. Bush, withheld UFO information from Jimmy Carter because Carter refused to keep him on as a CIA director. Let's check it out.
So the bottom line is, when President Carter did get elected on November 4th of 1976, one of the other major things he wanted to do was to get at the UFO information. So he contacted the head of the Central Intelligence Agency, who at that time was George H.W. Bush, who had been brought in by Gerald Ford to head up the CIA, because the CIA was getting dragged over the coals by the Church Committee, by Senator Frank Church in the United States Senate Select Committee on Intelligence Abuse, which all arose out of the fact that the CIA people were in the Democratic National Headquarters doing the burglary. And so that they set up a major select committee to investigate why were these former CIA people and mafia people doing in the Watergate Hotel. And so that Gerald Ford brought in George Bush to head up the CIA to protect them against that kind of investigation. And so on November 19th, just basically 2 weeks after he was elected on November 4th of 1976, President Carter sent for George H.W. Bush, the director of Central Intelligence, and asked him to hand over to him all the information that the agency had on the issue of extraterrestrial intelligence and the UFO phenomenon. And George Bush pleaded with him to hold him on as his CIA director. He wanted to become like J. Edgar Hoover had become in the FBI. And he remained one administration after another administration after another administration. In fact, J. Edgar Hoover, from back in the early 1930s, late 1920s actually, during the Palmer raids, the big famous Palmer raids that went down against, any immigrant who read more than 2 books a year, was being arrested and being chased around by Attorney General Palmer in the Red Scare, the big Red Scare of the 1920s. And J. Edgar Hoover had come on to head up a new group called the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and he remained as the head of that all the way into the 1970s, okay? And so the bottom line is George Bush wanted to be like that to the CIA. And so he pleaded with Jimmy Carter in this meeting to be left on as his CIA director, and Jimmy Carter told him no, that he had his own person that he wanted to have to be the head of the CIA. And so George Bush refused to give him the information about the UFOs. And he said, if you want to get the information about UFOs, you're going to have to contact the Science and Technology Committee of the House of Representatives and get them to contact the Congressional Research Office and have the Congressional Research Office, the Science and Technology Division, try to apply to get it declassified so you can see it. And so rather than waste a lot of his newly earned political capital, what Jimmy Carter did is he did that. He contacted the House Science and Technology Committee. They sent a request to the Congressional Research Service to conduct 2 top secret research investigations, one on exploring to ascertain the likelihood of there being extraterrestrial life elsewhere than on our planet, and whether it had any relationship to at least some of the UFO sightings. And I was contacted at Jesuit National Headquarters by Marcia Smith, who was the head of the Science and Technology Division of the Congressional Research Service, and asked if I would serve as special counsel to this investigation and see if we could get access to the Vatican archives, to see if we could get the Vatican archives to turn over to President Carter what they had on UFOs and the ET question. And so that's how I became part of that investigation as of the spring of 1977. And it was during that service that I got access to the classified portions of Project Blue Book. And Project Blue Book was a major investigation that had been conducted by the United States Air Force starting in 1952 to look into the issue of UFOs. But it proved to be a complete and total whitewash, and they had secreted away the actual sightings that were real UFOs. And the only ones they talked about publicly were the flock of birds and the swamp gas, and that had been misidentified and all that. And they said, see, there's nothing to this. There's nothing to see here. And it ended up closing up that investigation. And so I got to see the classified portions and actually saw photographs of an actual UFO that had crashed and plowed across this field and had dug this big trench through the field and was sticking in the side of this embankment, all covered with snow. And there were Air Force personnel around taking pictures of it. And I had traced the symbols that were around the bottom of the dome of the thing. It was that clear. The pictures were that clear of this. And so I did that, and I brought it back to Jesuit headquarters, and I met with Father William J. Davis, who was my superior, my Jesuit superior. I was a candidate for the Jesuit priesthood at that time. And I met with Father Davis, showed him the copy of this. He reaches down, he opens up the drawer, and I told the folks the other night about this over on Saturday night over at the New Living Expo. But Father Davis opens up the drawer in his desk and takes out a little 8.5 by 11 manila envelope and hands it to me. And so I took the clasp off it and I slid out this little 8.5 by 11 black and white glossy photograph of a UFO.
Wow. Okay. He said a lot in that
A lot to
one.
unpack there, right?
Yeah, definitely. So my first thing I kind of wanted to get into is George H.W. Bush. Now, this is the
Mm-hmm.
George Bush that was a president from 89 to 93. So not the latter President Bush, but the original. I knew he had some involvement in the CIA, but yeah, that's really interesting how he was like, "Oh no, please keep me on," like don't get rid
Right.
of me as the head. I believe, and I could be wrong about this, but I want to say this is what I know off the top of my head, that Carter was one of the guys that said, "Oh, when I become president, I'm going to release all this information about UFOs." He
Yep.
got into office, and then he just never really said anything. So who knows
Right.
if he was really briefed or if he found out things that he thought, well, the public's not ready to hear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think he got to all the answers that he wanted. So it sounded like he got stonewalled multiple times, and he had to go really out of his way to try to get to the information just because the CIA would not give him it. And it's really interesting too that he kind of relates the CIA at this time to the FBI, how powerful the FBI had gotten and how powerful the CIA was now starting to get. And
Yeah.
this is post Kennedy, so that was kind of, whenever there was a pivot to the amount of power that the CIA and the amount of resources that the CIA had started to gain.
Yeah. The other thing too, the about him seeing the picture of the craft that had crashed in the field, that almost gave me
Hmm.
goosebumps. Like I was on the verge of getting them. That's really, really cool. I wish I could see those pictures. Oh, and the
Yeah,
Vatican Library. I mean, it's rumored that they have
yeah.
all sorts of stuff in the Vatican Library,
Oh, I
but
know.
I doubt they would want to
That's
release
another deep
anything.
rabbit hole, right?
Yeah, yeah, but even so, I don't think they have a lot of incentive to release anything. It wouldn't help their cause.
No.
So,
Right. And how he kind of goes over Project Blue Book being a disinformation campaign,
yes.
nothing to see here. We're going to take these cases and give, ridiculous explanations for it that the public is just going to eat up. And this just seems to be you know, a consistent thing in the UFO topic of just constant disinformation and taking these stories and giving BS explanations that when you look closely at the official story, it just doesn't line up.
Right. Yeah, that I've heard
So,
that before, and I recognized Blue Book as soon as he said it. But
mhm.
yeah, not much was really released from Blue Book, unfortunately. So I'm glad that we have
Yep.
we have different programs now, like the one that Elizondo was on, and the UAP project that David Grush was on. So
Mhm. And the lead physicist of Project Blue Book, Hynek, he came out later and was actually a UFO believer, and he would go over that they basically made just not very good explanations for things. And it was something that really changed his worldview. So that might be an interesting person to do a deep dive on one of these episodes.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. But yeah, it's really interesting. Like I said, seeing the pictures and then finding out the information that Bush was kind of concealing stuff from people, and almost used it as blackmail to say, "Well, I'm not going to tell you unless you keep me in office."
Right. Right. All right. Well, let's see what else Danny talks about.
All right. All right, the next video we have here is brought to us by the X page at TMI Newsnet. So it's titled "The Man Involved in Every American Conspiracy, Danny Sheehan." Let's check it
And
out.
this is a documentary by Jesse Michaels. Jesse Michaels, he produces a lot of really good content. His documentaries are very interesting and they're very well put together. So highly recommend this documentary. It is available now, and we're going to be using some clips from this documentary. So yeah, well, we just wanted to kind of show the full documentary before showing a few clips
Good point.
or the trailer.
Yeah. All right, let's check it out.
Alrighty.
They went to Area 51, they got taken to S4, and they came to this area where there was a big room with a two-way mirror, and there was an extraterrestrial being there.
Do you think that the CIA killed JFK?
Not exactly, but I do know who did kill him. S-Force was a 15-man force that was created back in 1960 by Richard Nixon to kill Castro. What he did, strangely enough, is he called Howard Hughes, because Howard Hughes was a secret consultant to the National Security Council. They deployed the S-Force. You know, the guy that killed him was Roger Morales.
Yeah. Was George H.W. Bush involved in the death of JFK?
He was notified just before it was coming down, as Lyndon Johnson was. They were notified that this was happening.
I'm not a crook. I've earned everything I've got.
The guy whose office they were in the DNC, had been the major lobbyist in Washington, D.C. for Howard Hughes.
Wow.
And Nixon knew it. And Nixon went, oh, shit.
His paranoia really did him in. He was trying to overcorrect
Yeah,
for the
he
fact
was
that they would
trying to
attribute.
shut that thing down. Brown Brothers Harriman was a collective investment company. And they had the richest 25 patrons, the Carnegies, the Rockefellers.
Yeah.
You know, these are
all the Gilded Age family.
They're just the Gilded Age.
Got it.
I was asked to be the attorney for L. Ron Hubbard.
No way.
Yeah. And I said, first, what I want to see is the file you got on me. The relationship between consciousness and the functioning of the craft is just extraordinarily interesting. There seems to be an AI component to the craft itself that is able to be communicated with.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, a lot to unpack there. The two-way mirror with the alien. Whoa.
As we said earlier, very good production, and you can just see that this is a really interesting interview. It's more about, it looks like that it's more of a deep dive into the CIA with a lot of UFO content into it, and we're not going to go as much into the CIA stuff. Like, we're going to brush on it, but we're not going to go super deep into it. But as you can see, like, Sheehan has a big part in a lot of this, and was called into a lot of these cases as a lawyer. So it's really interesting. I mean, the title, the man involved in every conspiracy theory, or in every American conspiracy, it's pretty accurate. I mean, he was there in a lot of them. So really interested on what he says and all the connections he's built through these cases. So
Yeah, I mean, just his portfolio of cases alone, like he had to have met some highly influential people and then had to attack some at the same time too. So, yeah, but I just stopped on that part where he said two-way mirror with an alien like that. Yeah, if they could ever release those tapes, I would be the first one to watch them.
Yeah. So let's see what else he talks about.
All right. All right, so this next video is more from our documentary we addressed earlier. This is brought to us by the Twitter page at Red Panda Koala. And it's Danny Sheehan claims that George H.W. Bush briefed President Jimmy Carter on UFOs when he was the head of the CIA.
The early spring, January of '77, and I was the special counsel to the study that was being done at the request of President Carter.
What was the study?
Well, you just have to back up a bit. When President Carter, remember, had seen a UFO
Yep.
in 1969, I believe it was.
With a bunch of other people.
Yeah, a bunch of people, 11 other people. They were standing on the steps of this Lions Club.
Although I think that sighting may have been debunked since.
No, it wasn't. No, it hasn't been. That what he saw. It was only like 1,000 yards away. It wasn't like a big star in the sky or any of that weird stuff. It was like a UFO, and he was very specific about it.
He talked about it. Yeah, there's an interview where he talks about it.
Yeah, and he filed a report about it with the Air Force and stuff, with NICAP at the time. And so that when he was elected in the first week of November of 1976, the first thing he did was he sent for the head of the Central Intelligence Agency to come down to Plains, Georgia, even before he had gone to Washington. So he was still at his home down in Georgia, and asked the CIA person to come to brief him on the UFO issue. And it turns out that person was George H.W. Bush, who had been appointed by Gerald Ford, who had come in taking over for Nixon when Nixon resigned over the Watergate.
But yeah, that's more of what we heard earlier from the first video about H.W. Bush being the one that was the head of the CIA and him coming over to brief Carter.
Right. And this goes a little bit more into, I guess, at first I thought this was more about their interaction with Bush, but it seems more about Carter's, experience with UFOs and why he was interested in contacting Bush about this situation. And it's kind of funny too that, whenever Jesse Michaels brought up it being possibly debunked, Sheehan is like, no,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, where have we heard that kind of sentiment before?
Yeah. And again, like, be careful whenever you hear the word debunked, because just do your own research into it, decide for yourself, but don't just take somebody's word for it about something being debunked.
Yeah.
So,
For sure.
yeah, as you can see, Danny did not agree.
Yeah.
He was like, no.
He just quickly said nope. Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of funny too.
Yeah.
So.
I can see why you picked that video, Ross.
All right, well, let's check out. Oh, did you want to add on anything else to that one?
That was good. Yeah, I was
All
gonna
right.
say, yeah, I like that one.
All right, let's see what else we got on here.
All right. So we once again have another video from the documentary. This one's brought to us by the X page at Roger Stankovic.
Yep, and this clip is kind of interesting because Jesse Michaels does give Sheehan a little bit of pushback. And so that's kind of nice to see, having multiple perspectives being, presented here. And it kind of gives the viewer a chance to see both sides and make a decision for themselves on, which side that they're kind of leaning towards of a possibility in this scenario that they're discussing.
Yeah, I like to see that because it feels like sometimes with people, cough, cough, Bob Lazar, the people that bring him around just want to agree with everything he says and not really give him too much pushback. So, but yeah, let's check this one out.
And here we have an event taking place of the world getting ready to be made aware of the fact that there's this humongous other civilization around us in our galaxy.
What's the evidence that it's extraterrestrial and not some time traveler
the fact that people have been face to face with them and had telepathic communications.
Sure, but for everyone that says they're from Zeta Reticuli, they also say they're from the future, and they're also super deceptive and say all sorts of other crazy stuff.
Those are people in the UFO community who say all that. They kind of make up stuff. But the fact of the matter is just as plain as day.
No, but I mean, if you look at the Edgar Mitchell database, any of the databases around this stuff, I actually think it's split. Like, I don't think it's clear that they're from another planet. In fact, there's one hominid species on Earth that's sentient, upright, bipedal, that has advanced technology, and it's us. And there are 20 billion Earth-like planets in the Milky Way galaxy, but there are over 1 trillion non-Earth-like planets. So, and we're seeing a thing that looks like us.
Yeah.
They're hominid. So the likelihood of evolutionary convergence on a totally foreign planet is just super, super slim. And so the Occam's razor explanation would actually be that there's something emanating from, they're sort of related to mankind. And they could be interstellar, they could be a different timeline interacting with us. I just think we have to widen the aperture of possibilities.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, they're, but not to the point of just obfuscating.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Telepathic communication. I've heard
Mm-hmm.
before of people making those claims, that they were
Right.
able to. But in your opinion, what are the odds that there's all those different planets out in our universe my belief at least is that yeah, there's intelligent life out there. It probably would
Mm-hmm.
evolve similar to us because evolution picks the best design that moves forward and keeps going. So if our design worked well, it could easily see that in another species. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
with the odds of how many planets that are Earth-like, there's got to be some life out there, and even intelligent life. But has it made it to us? That's the question that I still have a hard time answering.
Right. And it's interesting too that they would appear humanoid, you know. What are the odds of that every intelligence life forms, they look like us from, vast star systems. So that is interesting. And I like the pushback. You can tell that Jesse Michaels is very well informed on this topic. He's had Grush on there before, on his show before, and Grush is very open to it not just being alien and being a wide variety of things, and not to just get caught up in it's aliens. So it is nice to see that perspective of a little bit of pushback. As you can see, Danny is pretty sure. He's pretty sure from his sources
Yes.
and what he's seen that these are extraterrestrials. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If he's very convinced, it's nice to have somebody, try to share those experiences with us, because he has shared a lot. He hasn't shared the specific documentation or evidence, but it is nice him just talking as much as he legally can about the information that he has been presented.
Yeah.
So.
It reminds me a lot of they've done interviews with Neil deGrasse Tyson, the astrophysicist, who's head of the
Mhm.
Hayden Planetarium, or was at least. And he said, all these alien movies that come out in Hollywood are boring because they always make them look like us. So his favorite movie was The Blob because, odds are there could be something out in the universe that's not going to look like us, and it's just a giant
Yeah.
blob. So yeah, when you say about them looking like us, it kind of reminded me of that.
Hmm. Yeah, and whenever you think about them looking like us, maybe it could be related to some sort of time travel phenomenon or something similar to that. And but yeah, it was interesting kind of seeing Jesse Michael's perspective on not just jumping on the alien train so fast, and just another perspective on it.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, even a face-to-face interview and telepathic communication doesn't rule out that they're from a different dimension
Right.
or that they're not time travelers from the future.
Right. All right. Well, let's see what we got next.
Alrighty.